Hey Fae folk, welcome and welcome back. So for today's video, I want to talk about doll lines that I think should have lasted longer. And I feel like this is a fairly common thought process within the hobby, especially amongst collectors who have been involved in doll collecting for longer. Because it's like, you see lines come and go, and there's always going to be that one that you're just like, man, I wish I had gotten more dolls from them. Like, I wish they hadn't gotten canceled so soon. I feel like that's a very common feeling amongst us doll collectors. I definitely know that I've experienced it. And so today I want to talk to you about the doll brands that I think genuinely should have lasted longer. And I am trying to be somewhat impartial. Like, obviously, my own feelings are going to bleed into this, but I also am trying to look at it from like a more logical perspective. Like, would I have liked to have seen more of Gen 1 Monster High? Obviously, like I loved it and I would have liked to have had more dolls. But that being said, they did have a really good run. Like they were around for a while. And so I feel like, I mean, spoiler alert, they're not on this list. I feel like that one is a little bit more justifiable that it ended. Am I still sad about it? Yes. But like, do I kind of get it a little bit more? Also, yes. So I was trying to be a little bit less biased with this list. Y'all can let me know how well I did. But of course, my opinions are still, like I said, going to bleed into there. They are just my opinions. You're obviously free to disagree. And I would always love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. Now, I should say these lines aren't in any particular order. It's not like least to most or most to least or anything like that. This is just kind of the order that I thought of them in. So first up on the list is Mermaids. I really think that this line deserved a longer run. I feel like the first line, the concept is so good, right? Like so many people love mermaids. I love mermaids. So obviously I'm into any sort of mermaid line, or at least I'm like, my ears are kind of perking up. I'm like, oh, wait, what am I hearing here? Mermaid line. I feel like it's such a good premise. And yet companies always seem to kind of miss the mark with it. With the first round of Mermaids dolls, there were a lot of issues, a lot of things that people weren't super, super thrilled about. And also the dolls just like aren't going to be for everyone. I know that a lot of people found the faces quite unsettling, which I do understand. I think they photographed horribly and they looked a lot better in real life. But yeah, there was just like a lot of things that people didn't love about the first wave, especially like the way they were packaged so you could touch the tails. I feel like a lot of tails got damaged in transit or like just sitting on store shelves. So I do feel like they kind of got off to a bad start. Like they didn't start out the way that they maybe should have. But then they released the Winter Waves line and it just felt like so much better, like just so astronomically better than the first wave. Like I have a couple of the Winter Waves dolls and I think that they're leagues above the original line. They're more interesting. Like they were very expensive, which is the only downside. If you could catch them on a sale though, I do feel like they were kind of worth it at that point. They had nice long hair that was like a nice quality hair. They had the fun gimmick with the glitter tails and like that worked out really well and felt a little bit, at least to me, more interesting than the temperature gimmick that the first wave had. And I felt like with the Winter Waves line, they were too expensive. Like that is absolutely true. I feel like because I think they retailed for like $40 or something crazy like that. Like they were really up there. Maybe it was 30. I can't quite remember. But they were on the more expensive side for a playline doll. But with that being said, I do think that there was such an improvement there. And then not in the US, but think I don't know if it was just in the UK or if it was anywhere else in Europe, but then the Slumber Party line did have like a very regional release, and I've heard good things about those dolls. And now Mermaids presumably has been canceled. We haven't heard anything from them in a while, and like there haven't been any leaks or anything. So like presumably the brand is dead, and it just makes me really sad because I feel like that first line really, really killed them. I feel like that kind of destroyed them before they could even really get started. They were showing improvement. I feel like the other two lines that came out were so much more beloved by people. And if they could have just found like a way to kind of compromise on the price and figure something out, I genuinely think that Mermaids had a chance at being a really cool brand and a really long lasting brand that people would love. Because again, so many people love mermaids. Like there were good bones there, but I just feel like they didn't like have a good opportunity to do any better. So I really wish we could have seen more from Mermaids because I do love the couple of Winter Wave dolls that I have. And like I said, I love mermaids. So it would have been really cool to get more, but alas, we did not. Next up, I want to talk about Bratzillas. And I will say, like, Mermaids, I mean, they had 3 lines. There were supposed to be kind of spin-off dolls, but those never actually came to fruition. So, like, that obviously got cut off. I understand that Bratzillas had a much longer run than Mermaids. Like, there's many, many, many more Bratzillas dolls than Mermaids dolls. And that's going to be the case for some of these other lines that we talk about as well. So, like, you could definitely argue that they had their time on the shelves and, like, that was fine. But me personally, I honestly think that we should have gotten more. I understand that Bratzillas was like kind of, a Monster High competition thing. It's like, oh, Gen 1 of Monster High is really popular at this time. So, that's with Mattel. MJ is like, let's do a Bratz spin-off line, and it's going to be spooky and creepy and like kind of appeal to the same people. I understand that. I honestly think that Bratzillas would have popped off if it had been introduced after Monster High kind of died, like after G2 happened and like that didn't go super, super well. I know there was like overlap, and I believe the Bratzillas did outlast Monster High in terms of being on the shelves, but I feel like if they had been like first announced after that, they would have gone so much harder because while I understand that from a company perspective, like, okay, Mattel's out here making Monster High dolls, let's do something to try to get into that market. Obviously, like, you can't know until it happens, so there's no way of knowing. But imagine if that market had suddenly been empty and like Monster High wasn't on the shelves anymore. And so the only choice if you wanted a spooky doll was a Bratzilla's doll. I just feel like they would have gone so much harder. I feel like some of the designs are so cool and so fun. And I've had a lot of you guys actually comment, interestingly enough, that you never were a Bratz fan, but you got really into the Bratzillas. Like, there definitely was a market for that. And I do feel like while they did have a good run, if they had been introduced at a slightly different time period, they could have had an absolutely incredible run. Maybe even could still be around today. I feel like the Bratz brand in general has a lot of longevity, and like maybe Bratzillas could have had that as well. So did they have an extremely short run? No. But do I still think that they could have had more and could have gone even further and become even cooler? Absolutely, yes. Next up, I want to talk about the Creatable World line of dolls, which I feel like is not unknown, but like it doesn't have the same brand recognition as like Bratz or something like that. So if you don't know, Creatable World Dolls was a line from Mattel, and basically the entire point of the line was to really fuck with the idea of gender, which I love. So each of the dolls came with short hair rooted in. I think it was rooted in. I'm almost certain it wasn't molded. But then they also came with a wig that you could put on to give the doll longer hair if you wanted to. And they all came with a variety of clothing pieces, some of which were more stereotypically masculine and some of which were more stereotypically feminine, with the whole point being that you would get a doll and you can make it whatever gender or whatever non-gender you feel like. Like, it's not like, here is your female Barbie. It's like, hey, here's a doll. You can make them wear whatever they want. They can be a boy in a dress, or they can be a non-binary person, or they can be a girl wearing guyish clothes, or like any combination of any of those. And I just think that was such a cool idea and like such a nice thing to see in terms of not quite representation, because it's not like the dolls are labeled as anything, right? Like, that's the whole point. But in terms of just having that creativity and kind of trying to escape from the gender binary that is so often present in doll lines, like almost exclusively present in doll lines, I think was such a fun idea. I know that these dolls did have like some issues with the wigs where like the long ones would look kind of awkward trying to sit on top of like the shorter hair. So, there were some kinks to be worked out, but I feel like that was such a like interesting concept, such a novel concept within the doll world. I'm sure that part of what happened with these dolls was that, some parents didn't like the fact that it was gender weird. But it just makes me sad because I feel like if the line had been able to go on longer and kind of evolve past some of those pitfalls, like with the wigs, like if they could have had some way to like fix that and like do different stuff and continue on with being ungendered dolls, but like fixing some of the like aesthetic issues, I guess you would call that, with like the wig not fitting right. Like, this line could have popped off so hard, and I I just really love the concept, and it makes me really sad that it's not here anymore because I've never seen anything quite like that in dolls before. I mean, obviously you can put like a Ken doll in a dress and like give that doll whatever gender you want. But just the fact that a company created a line that was supposed to be free from gender when you get it, and like you're supposed to be able to explore that yourself, I think is so beyond creative. And I hope at some point we get to see something like it again, because I genuinely think that is such a fun and interesting concept. And it's something I would love to see more of at some point. So I wish the Creatable World had gotten to last a little bit longer than it did. Next up, we have Novi Stars, which I do feel like filled a similar role to Bratz. Like, not quite Monster High exactly, obviously, but it's kind of Monster High adjacent in the sense that it's not a traditional fashion doll. It's like an alien, and that's something that's different and unique. I think these dolls are so fun and so interesting. Still very different. I mean, realistically speaking, we have Monster High dolls, but as far as aliens go, there haven't been that many alien dolls. So I do think it's like still even more like unique. Like, it's not just Monster High, right? Like, it does fill an additional niche to have alien dolls. There's so much creativity that can be done with that. I do think that the pitfall with these dolls was probably the playability, just because while they did have really cool gimmicks like glitter in the legs and stuff like that, a lot of the times that gimmick came at the cost of being able to redress the doll or being able to move the doll around very much. And so I do think that perhaps they were less popular with like parents buying for kids or something like that. They are a little bit more of display pieces, not all of them, but like I do understand that the dolls didn't always have the highest playability. Sometimes the hair quality wasn't super great. So at that point, like the hair play might not be as fun either. So I kind of understand why these dolls fell off. I can see why maybe the target demographic wasn't really picking them up. But from a creator standpoint, I do think that they were super, super cool. I know a lot of people feel the same way. Like so many people are like, bring Novi Stars back. We want to see Novi Stars again. And I get it. Like it's a really interesting concept, a really fun thing to do with the dolls. I would love to see them come back at some point. I think they would definitely have to rethink how they do their gimmicks and such so that they don't make the same mistake or like have the same problems as last time. But I do kind of wish that Novi Stars has had a chance to grow and like change those things and just stay on the shelves, because I feel like there's so much potential there. We just didn't quite get all of it. Just a couple more to talk about here. The next one is Pinky Cooper, which might be somewhat surprising to you guys. I don't even know if I've ever like talked about Pinky Cooper on the channel here. I know like I've talked about it with some of y'all in the comments, but I don't know if I've ever like mentioned it in a video proper, but it is a doll line that is like anthropomorphic dogs. And that's kind of the whole premise, at least is like, that's the important part of the premise to me, is that they are anthropomorphic dog dolls. And I'm not really a dog person. Like I don't mind dogs. Dogs are totally fine, but I love cats with my entire heart. So Pinky Cooper as it exists is not for me. Like I would never buy one of these dolls. But I do wish that we had gotten more of them, just because I do think it's so interesting. I think the concept of anthropomorphic animals is a weirdly untapped like market in terms of dolls. Like it's so common to see in movies, right? Like kids cartoons so often have anthropomorphic animals, or even if they aren't like, you know, standing like a human, like built like a human with an animal head, like animals that are sentient, animals sidekicks, like animals that have thoughts and feelings and all of that. I feel like that's so common in kids media that it is very surprising to me that we don't have more doll lines that kind of capitalize on that. We do have Wild Childs that is, you know, purportedly going to be coming out with a couple of dolls that does kind of the same thing, but obviously with kind of more wild animals. They're supposed to be making the panda and the cheetah. Fingers crossed that actually goes through. But yeah, coming back to Pinky Cooper, I do just think like that is a market that people would like. Like, I don't know why these dolls didn't last longer. I don't have any like understanding of that really, like what happened there. But I wish that they had lasted longer, because I think it's a fun concept. It's a very different concept. The dolls definitely would have stood out on the shelves amongst all of the human dolls, even amongst the monster dolls. Like a full dog head is very different. And me personally, like the selfish reason that I wish that these had gone on is that I think it would have been really cool if they branched out to different dog species or even to other animals. You know, I'm talking cats. I would have been very, very fascinated to see how the Pinky Cooper line could have evolved if it had lasted longer, just because it is such a unique premise that I feel like it doesn't go down the typical, like, okay, here's the fashion doll, here's the core dolls, now we're having a swim line, now we're having a winter line. Obviously, they could have done that, but there's just so much more potential because of the fact that it's like animal based dolls. And I really wish that they lasted longer, because I feel like there were so many creative things that could have been done with a line like that. But unfortunately, didn't get to see it happen. And then the last one for today is kind of sort of two, but like I'm lumping them sort of together. I wish we had gotten to see more of like classic Rainbow High and then Shadow High. Obviously, Rainbow High did the rebrand. People have been talking about that. You know, the news has kind of died down at this point. Like it's not new and relevant, but that's just something that I've been thinking about. And I really, really wish that we had been able to see more of Rainbow High at its absolute peak. For me personally, I think peak was like series 4. I think those dolls were absolutely amazing. The representation, the detail was still there. Like Rainbow High was on such a rise, like such an incline for so like long. Not like, oh my God, they've been just doing crazy for 10 years. Obviously, it hasn't been like that. But I do feel like when they were good, they were so good for such an extended period and so beloved. And like Shadow High too, that I know it wasn't as popular with kids, but for the collector demographic was so interesting and so fun and so cool to see. And it just makes me sad that we did have to have the rebrand. I understand that Mattel is probably, or not Mattel, sorry. I understand that MGA was looking at it and probably thinking, okay, we need to capture like more of the kid demographic, like make this more appealing to younger kids. But it does just kind of hurt my heart. I kind of wish that they could have just stuck to letting their other brands fill that niche instead of changing Rainbow High. I know that Rainbow High was getting kind of iffy. I do feel like there was a lot of issues in terms of the quality versus the price, and like they were getting kind of pricey, especially the like collector level dolls were getting kind of pricey. But I do feel like there could have been a way to like save the brand without having to change it completely. That being said, I don't hate all of the changes. Like, I don't think it's peak Rainbow High anymore, but I do still have a lot of the new dolls and I do still love a lot of the new dolls. But I also just wish that we could have gotten like the like I can't think of another word other than peak, like peak time for Rainbow High. I wish that could have lasted longer because I feel like for a while they were just really popping off. Like I said, with series 4, I know series 2 of Shadow High was wildly popular for at least collectors. Again, like I understand kids apparently didn't like it as much, but for collectors, a lot of people love series 2 of Shadow High. The entire Rainbow Vision, that's what it is. I didn't watch the show, so like I don't know anything about that. But those dolls, the Neon Shadow dolls, and then the Royal 3, and who was the last one? The Rainbow Divas? Was that it? But like those dolls, I feel like had such nice quality and people love those dolls. That era of Rainbow High, I just really, really wish could have lasted longer. I feel like there was still so much potential there and like still so much to be done there. And it's just, you know, it is disappointing that they changed. Again, not that I hate everything, but like it is a little bit sad to see kind of the heyday go. So this one's, I mean, maybe less justified because the line isn't even technically canceled. But like I am sad that the line will probably never be what it used to be again. So I think it still counts. But yes, guys, those are all of the brands that I wanted to talk about today. All the doll lines that in my heart, I'm just like, wow, I wish I could go back in time and like get some more of those, or I wish we could go back in time and have the line continue on. Just, you know, the things that I want here. But like I said earlier, I would love to hear your thoughts on these doll lines. And also if there are any other lines that you feel this way about that you wish lasted longer than they did, feel free to drop those in the comments as well. I'm always happy to hear your thoughts. But yeah, that's going to be it for today. I do hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day or your night or whatever it might be. And I will catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.